boy last week, who was 16 in San Francisco, told me on television, thank God we got to talk. Maybe somebody will start to listen. He said, I got no country, I've got no flag. Now he's only 16 years old. And I couldn't say you do. I don't have any evidence to prove that he does. They were tearing down his house because San Francisco is engaging, as most northern cities now are engaged, in something called urban renewal, which means moving the Negroes out. It means Negro removal. That is what it means. And the federal government is an accomplice to this fact. Now we're talking about human beings. There's not such a thing as a monolithic wall or some abstraction called the Negro problem. These Negro boys and girls who at 16 and 17 don't believe the country means anything that it says, don't feel they have any place here.
Welcome to the great city of Memphis, the nation's cleanest city, a rapidly growing metropolis of almost 500,000 people.
The term blight comes with a history that I think the connotation historically is one of sort of more characterizing or labeling a people, talking about minorities, blight as a manifestation of the way that those people live, as opposed to a condition of property itself. And this notion of wanting to remove blight historically was often a way of characterizing moving people, certain people away from neighborhoods so that they would become more desirable.
Big government programs came along to operate on a very large scale. And a lot of that planning and thought really didn't take into account the human element in the equation here.
And the idea, as I understand it, was to take billions of dollars nationally, millions of dollars locally, often using power of the government to take the property, condemn properties, tear them down with great plans to replace them. Well, in many, many cases, downtown Memphis being one, the replacements never occurred. You were left with condemned acreage with nothing there. So you had taken a neighborhood, obliterated it, and created East Berlin with nothing to show for it.
Houses that have stood for 100 years come crashing down in a day.
Every vacant lot that's sitting empty, 50 plus years later in many cases, those empty tracts of land haven't been reused, haven't been renewed, and what was there probably could have remained.
For the highways of America are now becoming one big road that can take you anywhere faster, safer, and more directly than ever before.
There are neighborhoods all around downtown Memphis with 8 lanes of interstates passing through what used to be a neighborhood. And when you go visit now, what you see is a street that goes nowhere, surrounded by empty lots that used to be where people lived in nice homes and nice neighborhoods. You see barrier walls that are 15 feet high by a street that has no houses on one side and patchy, dilapidated houses on the other side.
All the while there's building going on as a result of decisions that were made to annex territory 40, 50, 60 years ago, and it's all in the guise of being a better city and modernizing.
The American South really bought into the policies around this utopic suburban community. They wanted to have what was best because they started to see the decline of the city, but we left it fallow as we moved east because that's what policy, legislators, everything encouraged us to move east to affluence.
It really was a spiral that once people started leaving, they left behind houses in some cases that they may or may not be able to sell, and just again started a spiral or a cycle that led to even more exodus from the neighborhood. And again, ultimately, a lot of the people were people who did not have the opportunity to move into a different neighborhood.
Our population consistently increased on a trajectory almost like this until about 1970. But the size of our city has doubled. So we increased our population by 4%, but our city has increased by 55%.
And I think that is one of the big drivers of blight, is just not being able to have a reasonable tax base to support the enormous size of the city. For instance, and people are shocked to hear this, that Memphis is larger than Atlanta, Seattle, and Orlando combined.
Because I've seen the way that urban planning is done in Memphis, and if somebody decides that a horse farm needs to be an apartment building, it's going to happen. If the developer has the right connections, has enough money, you get it rezoned.
You know, key places as a kid where you remember a lot of fun stuff happening, and then you go away for a while and you come back and it's either a large parking lot or it's not active anymore.
One thing that I believe has led us to this place of sort of where did we go wrong? I think it has to do with a failure to properly regulate land uses in a rational way that was good for everybody, not just good for people who were speculating on land values.
Because it was scary. It's the first time that we ever done this, but after the first property, after we closed that deal, all the others just came easy.
You don't know to believe it or not until you actually do it. And then once you start doing it, you want to keep doing it.
I can remember advertising that would go on in late night infomercials on television explaining how to get rich in real estate without spending your own money at it. How to flip houses for quick profit. We have the introduction of subprime loans. Loans that were specifically designed for people who did not qualify, and it was driven and fed by the desire by people in Wall Street to have a product that they could package up and sell in the securities market.
Loans were just sold in droves to Wall Street. There was a huge demand for the product because of the returns. The problem with the returns, though, is they were based on a product that if anything hiccuped, like the property values, they were going to potentially default.
I'd go to court and I'd represent an individual homeowner, and I'd come in and I was little gnat. We were little gnats. Here's a couple $1,000, go away, we won't foreclose on this person's home. It was a cost of doing business, but it was a small cost of doing business because they were making enormous profits.
So the abuses were so great, they were undermining entire neighborhoods.
And it became about owning the piece of paper, and if you had 1,000 loans, if you had a good number of them that were bringing returns, that's what mattered. And it didn't, the other 200-300 where things weren't working out, well, you can move that piece of paper on and sell it to, the next owner of the paper.
A definition of a good loan used to be a loan that paid. It changed to a definition of a loan that could be sold.
I show that there are a total of 25 million subprime and Alt-A loans outstanding. These default-prone loans constitute 44% of all mortgage loans by count in the United States.
That's what's incredibly devastating about this particular period in history, is you have this build up, pressure against the dam, and then you have this rupture, and you feel the immediate collapse of the national economy.
Ms. Betts, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm coming from Memphis, Tennessee,
We're not New York City. We're not Southern California, Buffalo, Cleveland, or Baltimore. We're one of those areas of the country that didn't just get hit. In 2007, we had almost 12,000 foreclosure notifications for a total in that 8-year period of over 61,000 foreclosure notifications. This is the equivalent of 25% of our single-family housing stock, and that's where we're hardest hit. We don't have...
Excuse me, what was that percent again?
25% of our single-family housing stock.
Thank you.
Well, in the field, the thing I noticed is that you will go into neighborhoods where you didn't see any fire damaged property, yards would be all nice and clean, and here you will see a house. And they know it was open because you would see discarded newspapers in the driveway. That was the only thing that you would know that the house was vacant. Then you go in the house and it was the walls all painted, ceiling's nice, kitchen is clean. Open up the kitchen cabinets, you will see food and cans in the cabinet. The furniture would be gone, but there would be clothes in the closet. And then you would see where maybe the kids would throw some stuff around on the floor. It would just be as though somebody went on a vacation and never came back. You would see this all up and down the streets.
When I came in office in 2010, unemployment was extremely high. You had a tremendous amount of foreclosures. There were a lot of banks who had walkaway properties, what used to be called shadow inventory. And I can remember the first budget meeting that Mayor Luttrell called together of all the elected officials. That was in December, and he forecasted about a $20 million deficit in our county budget.
It would hit us all of a sudden that you couldn't react to it in the way I think we should have in retrospect. Everyone had to do a reassessment. I'm talking from Detroit, to Chicago, other places. Okay, we have a lot of inventory now. Some of it would never come back alive again. And so what do you do as a city? What do you do to assess that?
Then you have the data. Drawers and drawers. Records and records. At any time I could get a request for any record from 1850 something on to today. Trying to gather the data to answer some of the questions. How did this sneak up on us? That became an administrative nightmare. We realized we really didn't have the records that we need to prove how we got here.
So one of the first places to begin when we were trying to get our arms around the foreclosure crisis was doing an assessment of what the scale of the problem was, as well as let's start finding out information. How many vacant properties do you have? What's their condition? Who owns them?
Around 2009, we had everything stored in files, but nothing was digitized. And that's just when there was a big movement towards relying more on technology to do data analytics, using geographic information systems to lay data out on a map and be able to physically put eyes on it and say, well, obviously these are the areas that have been more disinvested. That was a very important part of this movement as we're collecting these bulk amounts of data that we're able to store them digitally, which was unheard of before. All of this data really had to start at the grassroots level though. As helpful as it was to have collaboration from the county and the city, community members and churches and schools going out and collecting data in their own neighborhoods was really pertinent to have this movement move forward. Without the support of the community, it really wouldn't have been possible to have this wide-scale amount of data.
In so many communities and in so many stories, you don't have that information. It takes a lot of effort to try to even piece together that story. We can sometimes get more information about our DNA than we can about real property.
Every parcel of land has an ID number, like a social security number, that is a standardized way for us to know what piece of land we're looking at. One parcel ID could have no utilities for several months, multiple code violations over the years, hasn't paid their taxes for the last 7 years. And this is a really good indicator for us that this is an investor-owned property that is vacant and not being taken care of. We could see a lot of trends, especially in impoverished neighborhoods. Things like asthma rates being really prevalent, investor-owned properties, food deserts. One of the things that was most prevalent during this time was the foreclosure rates in these neighborhoods. When we map predominantly African-American areas of Memphis, it's directly overlapped with Wells Fargo foreclosure cases, and where we can see the highest number of Wells Fargo foreclosures was definitely in these predominantly African-American neighborhoods.
We had Katrina. FEMA was on the scene. All sorts of federal relief. But when this foreclosure flood hit, it's kind of like a silent killer. Houses just flopping over. And there is no federal FEMA to come in and provide just a modicum of relief. And then in addition, the cost to the city. We weren't talking about nickels and dimes here, folks. We're talking about real dollars, millions of dollars. Where is the countervailing power to all the lawyers who go to the banks? We said we want to do something differently in Memphis, Tennessee. Well, we looked at the numbers, put those numbers against maps, and it stood out like the nose on your face. Where were you making those loans? In the African-American community. And it wasn't just spreading out all over town, it was inside that red line. When we found that there were those who were willing to say under oath that no, we knew what we were doing.
Many ex-employees of Wells Fargo even admitted that they used multiple tactics to convince people to come into these subprime mortgages. And employees were being offered incentives when they were pushed by management and incentivized like this, were pushing these subprime mortgages on people even though they really knew it was wrong all along.
How can this exist in 2008? Someone with pure, unadulterated racial intent says, I'm going to exploit that sucker there. I was convinced we were going to win, but I just didn't want it to take 5-6 years. We needed some immediate relief. I did something rare. I didn't have any lawyers in the room. They didn't bring any lawyers. I said, now we'll consider this a settlement conference. I'm not going to use anything against you that you say here. Let's just talk about how we can come together in a sense of goodwill. We've got two alternatives. One, we can fall to pieces together, or we can say, look, this shall not stand. To their credit, they bought into that, and we did $400 million plus in immediate relief. in financial assistance to first-time homeowners. So we took what was one of the ugliest days in the history of the city of Memphis and turned it into one of the brightest days. Am I saying that we're out of the woods now and it's no more? Oh, no, 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 no. That'll be a while. But are we turning the corner? Are we getting onto the right trajectory? I think not only Wells Fargo, but other financial institutions have learned from this. And you know, the monetary benefit is great, but the benefit of having other financial institutions here, man, did you hear what Wells Fargo had to fork over down in that place called Memphis? Yeah, I heard about that. Well, our city is 3 times as big. What if we get hit up here? It'll be bigger than that. Yeah, we ought to do something about this. So, sure, what happened here was great, but the deterrent effect and the remedial effect it had around the nation, I would like to think that what we did here in Memphis had some small role in that. I'm convinced that it did.
It's always interesting being in this stuff downtown. Like, when I was a kid, like, you were kind of not supposed to venture around. Memphis, it seems to continue to keep trying to build itself off these dead, like, musicians, but it's like, what about your population now? Memphis is very much like, Elvis, like, put a bunch of money into Graceland, like, put a bunch of money into the riverfront and all these things, but like, there's like buildings like this all over the place. The way that it's marketed, especially now to like this whole tourism thing, like trying to bring in all these new millennials and stuff, but like there's a bunch of millennials here, but they just don't reflect the demographics that they want to bring in the city. So it's like everybody getting new jobs. Like everybody I know who's coming into the city with new jobs, they're like from out of town. Let's check this out.
Oh, look at that view. How is the tallest building in the city still vacant?
I have no idea.
It makes no sense.
I feel like it's just a matter of time before someone else with more money just comes along and buys this thing up.
Right.
An outsider, you know.
.100 North Main and the old Benchmark Hotel on Union are considered eyesores, public nuisances by the Shelby County Environmental Corp because they have sat vacant too long without any progress.
The question before the court this day is to whether or not the court will determine that the building that is commonly referred to as the Benchmark Hotel as it stands today constitutes a nuisance.
In your opinion, Inspector, is the property in the condition that you've shown a risk to public safety?
Yes.
Have you had occasion to take photographs of the property when you've been out for your inspections?
Yes, I have.
How were you able to access the property, Inspector?
The gate was open.
Okay. Open so that anybody could walk through?
Yes. We do get complaints about the property. We're aware of the property because we do have homeless people there. We're aware of the property because it does generate rodent infestation in the alley. Just go look at it. It's a real problem for us.
Thank you, Mr. Burgos. I have nothing further. Mr. Patel, thank you for coming. MNR Hospitality, that's not headquartered in Memphis, is it?
No.
MNR has an office in Memphis, right?
No.
It doesn't. Do you work in Memphis?
No.
Tell us about the financing in place related to the redevelopment you just told the court about for the benchmark.
There's nothing signed yet?
So nothing in writing from any banks related to financing?
No.
I'm going to declare this a nuisance. I want to see plans. I want to see timelines. I want to see how you're going to finance it. I want to see this done in my lifetime.
The Environmental Court of Shelby County has been a foundational element of all of the strategies that Neighborhood Preservation Inc., that the City of Memphis, that Shelby County, that the Chamber of Commerce, that foundations and other nonprofits have built on to get to a place of an approach to addressing the worst of the worst properties in our community.
We have a number of cases involving folks who have grown up in a property, they raised a family in a property, it's played a significant part in their life, and they, for completely understandable reasons, want to save that property. They want to make use of it. They want to preserve the legacy of that property, and we understand that. We also know that in a lot of those situations, the owners simply are not equipped. They don't have the capacity, they don't have the money, they don't have the means to do what's necessary to save the property. The aim here is to get the property back to a productive, positive use that's contributing to the neighborhood and the area around it. And even with the best efforts, that may not be possible. That family was the mother and a son, and continually over the course of the last couple of years, he is working on the property, and he'll come back after some time away from the property to find that it's been broken into, that piping has been ripped out, his work has been compromised, and he is understandably frustrated. They're suffering because they're having to focus so much and worry so much about this home and the property you once loved. We have folks come into court saying, well, that's how we've always done it. Code enforcement never bothered us before. Why are they bothering us now? They're not challenging the legality or what the code says. They're not even challenging that their property is in violation. They're simply saying, well, nobody ever enforced it before, so why now, why us?
If you went to a lot of cities and you say, talk about your code enforcement system, they might say, we have code enforcement, but there's no system to it.
So one of the first things I did when I took over, I wanted to make sure the process was right, the structure was right in terms of how code enforcement from the top management all the way down was being handled.
See what we got here. We got one court order from Brittany. Says potential squatters, and the courts want me to go in and do an inspection to see whether or not it's condemnation worthy or is it worthy to be rehabbed. All right, one of y'all get out here in this heat. I'm gonna beat the heat, huh?
You have housing inspectors. They go out in answer to complaints from neighbors or somebody about the condition of a property. They go out with a clipboard usually, and they're making notes and measuring which things were against the code and writing up a citation. Then you had some inspectors and some managers of those inspectors who recognized that there were new ways of doing that a little bit more efficiently by introducing newly available technology.
Good morning, neighborhood improvement. A lot of times you have to put in your password to log off before you can power it down. All right, bye. I was in the field as an inspector, and I was doing things on the paper, and I said, takes too long, it's not accurate. The data people just gotta come behind me and read it. How can they read my scribbles? So I converted a lot of forms over to Excel. Every form I can think of, I did it on the computer. In a way, converting all those forms was the beginning.
After that period of time, you were given a tremendous amount of data that would never existed before. You can imagine the excitement.
And so now you have, this sort of baseline information of what the conditions of the property are, and then taking that information, matching it up against real property records, assessor's records to find out, are there patterns here? Do we see a concentration of vacant abandoned properties in this block or in this neighborhood?
So in your sub-district, you can pull up your tablet and see from the survey exactly what parcels in your sub-districts are blighted or vacant. And of course, it constantly changes, and so that can be updated, and it can also change and be fed to the tablet.
So when they came over to the system and gave us tablets and the software to do this work, it came together. And when it came together, we started seeing results. Numbers started dropping, and we just sort of separated, sorted it out. The team that I work with, the NPA, put us together to work strictly with this. And it really made a change in the numbers. This property right here is one of the ones that we've got to check out. This guy here, he failed in the crisis too. He convinced the courts that he could come up with the capital and the resources to get it done. Well, he did, and he started work on it, and money ran out, so now we have it back in court. It's a nice home. I just hate to see property like this, nice property like this, fall by the side, because it can be really made. Someone can come along and finish this property up. That's why I'm not really going to sign this property off to be one of the ones that we need to demolish, because it's got good bones. We can perhaps find a receiver. Maybe the courts can find a receiver. It's a nice neighborhood. You have to look at that too, the neighborhood that it's in. Now, if the receiver can take this property and finish it up. It's like a disease. It spreads. Blight spreads. It's like where when you see one, then you start seeing others. For example, I can tell this property here, which it hadn't came across the courts yet, but it's on its way. High grass and weeds, there's no one there. And it's right next door to one that we have in court. And you can kind of look around, and there's another property right here. You can tell that it's the same way. There's no one here. High grass and weeds, and it starts spreading. Before you know it, you have a neighborhood where there's a lot of vacant properties, and the property value goes down. And this is what we're trying to keep from happening.
You come to appreciate what a problem property does to a neighborhood, what sort of the gutting impact that a single vacant home, a property that's not well maintained, what that can do to forget about property values and property tax revenue. Those are very real consequences. But what a problem property does to is the psyche of a neighborhood, to surrounding homeowners, to oftentimes to the owner of the problem property who can't deal with it, who doesn't have a way out, to kids who walk by on the way to school. I mean, when you really look at it and then you magnify it to get to what we have in Memphis, you realize that this is a very real problem.
Can you show myself and company routine at 488 East Alston Avenue, please? This here property was written up a couple years ago after several attempts at compliance.
With no progress, I had to refer the property over to the NPA program. So here we're doing follow-up pictures to refer the file over to condemnation. This is one of those stalemates that causes us to have another vacant lot. Go ahead.
That number again, please.
Stand by. What's up, Doc? Dealing with the car and taking my photo. I seen your backyard. You gotta tighten up in the backyard. You gotta. Yeah. It's junky. Chevy S110, S10, N8 for junk. So when I come back in a couple weeks, if you can crank it up, pull it forward and backwards, you're good. But it's just at the time of inspection, it appears inoperable. See, they towing car.
We're scheduled to knock down 3 homes today. We can average anywhere from 5 to 6 a day. It's bittersweet, the homeowner sometimes lost it up under, difficult circumstance or whatever the case may be. But in the meantime, those homes they are a neighborhood nuisance and they need to be torn down.
When the housing market crashed, a lot of homes were demolished. What they left us with was a burden in a sense because you have a lot of vacant lots that the city has to maintain to keep the grass from growing up as tall as you are. We help sustain and control property value. The community that has the presence of code enforcement is going to have a high property value. That in turn goes back to tax revenue that helps the city operate.
OEM, show me routine at 4259 East Mallory Avenue. How you doing? You doing okay?
Yes, sir.
You've been busy, huh?
Yes, sir, I have.
Let's see what you've done. Okay. Okay, you got your sheetrock up, and that's good. All right, now what's this, your attic here, right?
That's my attic there.
Okay, now is this gonna be your utility closet or?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you gotta have your, okay, let's.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, yeah, you've been busy.
Yes,
So
sir.
this was a complete burnout, wasn't it?
It was, sir.
Yeah, well, like I said, I knew you could do it, and the environmental court, we're not in the business of tearing down houses, you know that. And I told you when I first, this case came across my desk, I told you that I was gonna work with you on this.
Yes, sir, you did.
And that I knew that you didn't have the capital to really throw down and do it at one time. And we were almost at that point, where
Yes,
we can go ahead and get MLG&W to restore your services. And I'll take a picture of that meter. When you get your light turned on,
yes,
it's a done deal. And see what happens when, once the county do your inspection, and MLG, they put that green stick on here, that's what I'm looking for.
Yes, sir.
When we get that done, we there.
Yes, sir, that's right.
That's what we want to get done. That's what we want to get done.
This is our home, and we were trying our best to get back into it. It was a process. Not able to live in here without a utility. It was hard for me and my kids to possibly be here. And I had a couple of break-ins, police report documents, stuff like that. But the whole thing is that we're coming to a closing on it. My finals had an electrician come out here to get my finalized, and the county put that stick on there, and I should be finished with this. And I should be ready to move in where I can better care for the property. Because we all are human, and they sort of worked with me, and they was very coordinated as far as to give me process time to fix up my home. Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
I was born and raised in this neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
In fact, I was born in the house up the street. This is my sister. She owns the house up the street. I have another sister that's in the family home up the street. And we're trying to keep it up. And it's hard keeping your property up and somebody else is not keeping theirs up and it's making your property value go down.
What happens is the city is paying for it to be maintained. If they cut it as often as you will cut your yard, then it's gonna cost them more money than they can afford.
Why is code enforcement so hard on the little man that's trying to rent out property? But now, the bigger people, I'm talking about these big apartment complexes, and I feel sorry for people. And the plumbing is messed up, they have no air. But they continue to rent to people, and nothing is done about it.
Our mission is engagement, like we're doing here now, education, then enforcement. There's no big eyes or little U's in court.
We have to let those owners, those landlords know that if you don't take care of your properties and rent them out properly, then we're coming. And we've seen that they don't just own one unit. They don't like to be just bad for just one apartment complex. They want to be bad for a bunch of them. And the city of Memphis, without something in place, you're saying that's okay. You're encouraging landlords to take possession of these properties, and that's just not acceptable.
Breaking news alert, federal agents raided several low-rent real estate in Memphis, including several major apartment complexes.
Pest-infested apartment complex in Raleigh, first exposed by WMC Action News 5.
They had their contracts revoked at 2 apartment complexes for not fixing problems. And now we have learned that the city's code enforcement department will be visiting another apartment complex tomorrow.
We're going over to Shelby Pines. We're going to team up in teams of 3 and 4s. Now what you all will see, if you will look at your map, the blue, you'll see they have different zones, the way they've charted their property. This blue over here, most of those are vacant. And those are the ones they're supposed to be rehabbing. So they're supposed to let us in. We want to do it as thorough of an inspection as we can. When we went over the posted notices, we noticed that there were walls, exterior walls that were literally buckling. So we want to make sure we get as accurate pictures as we can as possible. They got some problems over here, some serious problems. And this is not the first time. They've had problems before. But here we are now, so we're gonna have to, they need our help at this complex.
You know, when you have children living in these type of situations, it's devastating. It gives you no aspirations to life when you're growing up in these type of environments. And that changes with suitable housing.
Everybody gather around. Over here, listen up, we got exterior and interior write-ups. Some of them are combined together. Interior write-ups, exterior write-ups. No, Rev, you're gonna need more than that.
Why are you the tallest one out?
Okay, Ashley got her team. Who's your team? Which was that building right there?
Ooh, bed bug city. Looks like there's 5 units. 5 units with the second story having a third story on top of it. What he's doing now is he's just documenting the outside, and then we'll start zooming in. You ready?
Thank you. 1752
Is 47. The wall has had a significant failure, catastrophic failure, to where you can actually see inside the unit. There's the hot water heater right there. So what we're discussing here is that not only do we have open electrical boxes, but we also have water dripping all the way down the whole side, and then it's dripping onto an open meter cover. So one of the big things too we look for, stolen meters. There's 3 of them stacked up in this unit right here. And what they'll do is they'll just stick it up there, and then it goes, that turns the power back on for them. Wow.
India 31. Oh, yeah, this is 31. We're at the Shelby Pines Apartments. I think we got a fire hazard over here.
Had that first big freeze and everything froze. And after the freeze was over with, see, that's when it started leaking. And it kept leaking. I kept reporting. Nobody came out. It fell in. Nobody came out.
And so, how long you been without air?
Well, I guess ever since I've been here.
Most people don't even know about us. We come to most properties and they're like, I didn't know anything about you. Or they may hear about us from word of mouth. Someone may say, someone we dealt with, someone calls, hey, maybe you need to call code enforcement. I can see that they put some new sheetrock here, but didn't fix the outside problem. This past summer, we had temperatures triple digits with the heat index, 103, 105. So I can imagine a fan, just that fan right there on the table.
No one should be living in these conditions. I think that all violations should be abated within a timely manner.
Like nails sticking up out the floor, or where they came and put nails in to help this stay down, and they just couldn't get them all the way down or something.
I haven't had any heat since I lived here or any air.
Really?
Mm-hmm. No heat, no air.
Because I don't feel anything coming out of here.
Toilet upstairs leaks downstairs when it's being used, so they cut the water off in it till they can get that fixed. And the tub was stopped up very bad that they had to put acid in it, and they never came and got it unclogged, so the acid just sat in there. We need your nose clean. Come on, boy. I have mold as soon as you come through the door. That's my first mold issue, but the second mold issue I have was in my closet in my kids' room. Mm-hmm. I went into the closet where the AC is at, and the wall was filled with mold from the top to the bottom.
Involuntary exodus. God up above, but who down here protecting us? Conditions we live in make you pick this Smith & Wesson up. Tearing down our hoods for the new ones they erecting up. City poverty stricken, preying on lottery tickets, ungodly conditions, they repossess the pot that we piss in. I get fired up when speaking about the higher ups. Suit and ties lie to us, but dope boys inspired us. Tell me what's the real meaning of community? My black skin makes me ineligible for immunity to foreclosure. Families kicked out and forced over. Sick of dealing with this weight cause it's giving me sore shoulders. Houses rat infested, communities lack investments. The system sets you up to be young and black with depression. It used to seem bad luck was in our genes when really it's our location. The poor keeps the world rotating.
Got us waiting on the promised land. Walking through the desert with a voucher in our hand. This ain't Egypt, this the brave and the free land. If it's dead, then I say we need to take a stand. New slaves dealing with slumlords, conditions dumb poor. Wonder why your kid lungs sore. Don't talk about it, what you think y'all got hung for? I be a martyr, sing this song more. See, the projects was a project. Got us living like we lab rats. Ghetto be the cage, prison be the lab test. We gon' be the change after Generation X. These are war crimes. No, our country must confess.
We can bail out and save our homes in the United States of America.
Proposing more than $6 billion in cuts to affordable housing programs.
Housing is in trouble.
A 20% cut in community development block grants, a 25% cut in elderly housing, a 50% cut in housing for the disabled.
I mean, it really does come down, when you think about it, to state and federal government. And so, you know, until there is either sort of a national crisis or local crisis, you know, the communities are having to sort of confront this challenge on kind of a building by building approach.
I used to live right here, 429 Vans, number 104. I'll never forget it. I remember when we first moved over here, which was actually a result of displacement because they had to uproot and move everybody that lived over in Hurt Village. Right here in this cut between the two buildings, that's where I used to hang out at with some of my old friends when I was in the street, smoking weed, selling drugs. Once I got arrested and got sentenced, I knew I couldn't come back here. I was talking with a guy earlier today, a citizen, and he said they build fences to keep people out. And when I was living over here, it felt like it was to keep me in. Leaving the place gave me hope, but coming back to it in the condition it was in, when you come back, you drop your head because there's disparity there. It doesn't look like a place you want to come back to. Down here, we have the St. Paul Historical District. The movie Hustle and Flow was filmed in this house here. What's up with it, man?
How you doing there, Nelson?
Good.
What's going on?
Man, no much hanging in your neck of the wood.
Was these one of the properties you put in MPA?
Yeah, I remember this one.
As of today, they're making progress on the property. They cleaned up. It's a new owner that came out.
That's what's up. Code.
It's like they starting to gut out everything.
Code enforcement. They still in court?
Yeah, they still in court. They go to court. Matter of fact, they go to court August. They on this end of August.
So that's in a couple of weeks?
Couple of weeks.
I'm thankful for the NPA program. You get to preserve a lot of properties that otherwise would have been demolished. So what the property gonna look like when they finish? What you think?
So I hope a little better than what it was.
We got into a project because we liked the street. We saw that we could take one street, one block, and really turn it around. And because it was a block that we could kind of have to ourselves, we knew it would be a good place to improve and really fix up. And these buildings are actually historical buildings. No one even knew that was a historical spot. It was just a dilapidated street. The renovation of the project took close to about 6 months, and we're happy with them. I mean, we're really happy. We're glad that the residents are happy. They seem to be pleased. We haven't had a lot of problems with complaints or repairs. I think everything's new, so that helps. They seem to be taking care of the place. Every time I drive by, it seems that everyone enjoys living out here and that, you know, they're really respecting the place, which is huge. I mean, you can tell this whole block has just changed. You can go one block over from here and it's pretty scary. Unfortunately, when people are only paying you $500 a month in rent, you know, something like a toilet goes out, it costs you $300 or $400. Some landlords don't have that money to do that. We think it helps, especially in the lower income properties, to rent from people that can afford to maintain the properties. We will not approve somebody for a place unless they make 3 times the rent. So if somebody wants to rent a $500 place, they gotta make at least $1,500. If they want to rent we have some $300 places, they gotta make at least $1,200 a month. Because we don't want people one thing is we don't want people getting have to put them out. Two sides of it, it's never fun putting somebody out of the house. It's not profitable for us or for them. And if they don't make at least 3 times rent, it's gonna be really hard for them to keep up with it.
My monthly income a month, I work for, right now I'm in the process of going to school. I work for Taco Bell, so I make $7.75 an hour. So me paying rent, I damn near have to struggle to pay rent. Like I get up, go to work, bust my tail, every day I go to work. Really sometimes like the job or whether you don't like the job, but you know your bills have to get paid. So I say I make around a month, I'd be lucky if I see $1,000 a month at my job. I'd be very lucky if I see $1,000 a month. I'd have been homeless before. I done slept on these streets before. Yeah, but with the way that we living right now and the money that we get, ain't no telling when we'll be homeless. To be honest, we just take it a day at a time. To be honest with you, because we never know. We can go to work tomorrow. I can go to work tomorrow, and my boss can have a messed up day, a shitty day, and she can find me right there on the spot, without even giving me a reason or anything. Then I have to fend and see how I'm gonna pay my rent this month or the next month. It's just difficult making ends meet.
The axe fell tonight on 2 more Memphis schools.
Shelby County Schools has closed 20 schools.
7 Shelby County charter schools will be forced to close.
1,500 students from 7 charter schools will now have to find a new school.
It's clear the neighborhood surrounding Carnes Elementary has seen better days. 82-year-old James Payne remembers them.
Things changed. I've seen a lot of change. I remember when houses was all through here. This apartment been closed for several years.
He lives across the street from the school. He sees students come and go every day and believes it's one of the remaining pillars in the neighborhood. With dwindling enrollment, the district says Carnes will be closed.
It's kind of crazy looking at my first multifamily property that I bought and renovated. It took me almost 8 months. I thought it was a good purchase. It was right across the street from 10, 15-year-old school, right in front of a church, and another set of apartments that was currently under renovation. And in the middle of me renovating the property, one day, this guy showed up to the school and basically started boarding it up. I'm looking like, hold on, they're boarding the school up. I'm thinking appraisal, 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 appraisal. This definitely is gonna hurt my appraisal. Perfectly good school, new windows. It's not 20 years old, and it's boarded up. It was kind of depressing knowing it impact the value of our community. I look around and I see local investors rehabbing multiple small projects in our communities. And at the same time that we're investing on small level, we get on such a wider level disinvestments. Not to have any control over the time frame that they decide what they're gonna do with it is even more frustrating, especially when it decreases the value of something that you're investing into. I just wish more can be done about it.
This is the before, and that's the after. Complete transformation. So the fire department throws things out to put the fire out, but if the owner doesn't show back up, it's just left this way. But through some committed partners in our neighborhood, in the community, Mr. Irby decided to turn this thing around, got the resources from our partners, and he's able to take what was an eyesore and a detriment to the community and turn it into what you see today. Hope. When you ride down the street and see that building, it makes you think someone cares about this neighborhood.
Carter, brother, on behalf of Mr. Benny Urban and his enterprise, here's the key to your new apartment.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ooh, this is mine.
This is yours, this is the way you're going.
Oh, Lord.
You still have a little more.
I can't wait. The next project is going to be on a whole nother level. Hopefully we'll be able to partner with other entities to achieve something even greater.
Take everybody. Take all of y'all.
What's really important about our work here is the fact that, we have 72 units here of 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. I know what this community can be. I know what it once was, and it wasn't always like this. It was once a great functioning apartment community. This will bring affordable housing back to the site, but at the same time, you'll be transforming the way people live. This will be an opportunity for kids to walk right out of their door to the school, so it creates a sense of belonging for a kid.
We picked MLK Prep because of references from both the foundation and others in the education world that they had a dynamic leadership, was really engaged. It would be a good place to really get started. So we met Mr. White, and everything that people had said about him, in my opinion, was true. He's a dynamic person. He actually grew up in the neighborhood, went to Fraser High School before it became MLK Prep, created the charter school, and was just a good, positive force. So we figured out an area around the school because, again, you can't spread yourself too thinly in order to make an impact.
We want to be able to provide the type of landing strip for everyone in that community to be able to achieve what we all feel like is the American dream. And in order to do that, you have to alleviate many of the things that poverty induces. Poor schools, crime, food deserts, lack of job opportunities. We have to have a succinct, definitive plan to ensure that we're attacking all of those areas and everybody doing their part. We want to be so good and be that lighthouse for folk to where they say, you know what? Hey, this neighborhood isn't what folk think it is. We like where we live. There's a great school that my son or daughter is attending, and we want to stay. Poverty is not a death sentence. It can and has, in a number of folk, strengthened and built a resolve to be great.
Actual impact in terms of academic achievement, the majority of that impact comes outside of the classroom. The fact that these kids were leaving school and going to neighborhoods that were, going to jacked up neighborhoods, is the phrase I like to use. You lose a lot of the benefit that you're getting in the classroom. The whole effort there is really to create solid, sustainable, quality housing for students and families so they can afford to live in the neighborhood, have great housing, and be very accessible to the schools.
Do you have these organized by growth and fixed? I'm gonna give you one more minute to try on your own, then I'll give you a clue.
We always say that the school is kind of like the beacon of hope in that community. And so if that is the case, around the school needs to look appealing to families. And so when you see our school and then you see vacant buildings around it, then parents are questioning that. Is this really a good school? Is this really a good neighborhood? Should I have my child here? And so those things matter.
Go.
Yeah. Bye, ladies. Have a great day.
The city hasn't really created a housing plan. We have so many people that simply have very little money. In order to solve that problem, yes, we definitely have to have resources that are not looking to generate a market rate of return, but are looking to generate a positive societal benefit. We're actually partnered with another nonprofit, the Works Incorporated. Getting them engaged in the Fraser work was important because they were one of the few nonprofit CDCs that actually had multifamily experience, actually done a tax credit project, and even after Roshan got on board, after the project was completed, she was the steward of the asset, and they recently completed a refinancing that she pretty much spearheaded. The nature of what they do and their mission is critical to the long-term success and sustainability of these projects.
Memphis has a crisis. We're 30,000 units down in quality affordable housing. Realistically, if code enforcement, number one, had enough officers and the ability to penalize and be punitive to every landlord in Memphis who, in their way, is serving the most vulnerable families in our population, then we'd have probably the largest homeless population of families, including young children, in the U.S. Instead of penalizing families for the actions of landlords, we wanted it to be a part of a solution that served families. Our plan was to have construction done December of 2019. It's going to be closer to September of 2020 because the local banks said no. They would give us these big reports and these long talks with excuses as to why they shouldn't invest in this project, this neighborhood, the people that we would serve, and us as partners.
Local finance, and we're seeing how, she came in and understood the deal based on experience, and it's just more than.
It's not exciting, but I'm kind of behind the scenes. I play a part in how the projects get financed, how they apply for their construction loans, or how they apply for the tax credits that are part of the equity to renovate the project. I do the appraisals for lenders to provide the financing for construction or acquisition. This will be the first project in this neighborhood of substantial size to really have a significant impact, not in just this immediate area, but for this entire community.
It's finally starting to feel real, because we're putting in paperwork. They were afraid to go in a market like Fraser. A lot of it is perception. And the banks had the authority to make a decision, and they chose not to make the right one. I felt like because I am a Black woman leading an organization with an operating budget of $6 million, it didn't matter because I'm a Black woman leading an organization in Memphis. And so that was not enough weight for banks who could call me by my first name. So we tried to find financing love in Memphis, but we had to go online and date another city, and we found it very quickly. It was love at first sight, and we eloped together with a bank out of Boston.
"22 convicted felons will get the chance to turn their lives around while learning some valuable skills."
Monday, a restoration project broke ground in Binghamton that organizers say is inspired by the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I believe Dr. King will be very proud.
This abandoned apartment complex will be restored using the work of convicted felons, part of the Lifeline to Success program.
We've taken individuals that society has cast away, and we're putting them in position to turn neighborhoods around, and in the process turn their lives around.
Billy Irby started Irby Enterprise 8 years ago and is a graduate of the Lifeline to Success program.
I'm not my grind, I'm not my past, I'm new, I will succeed. What? I will succeed.
You're tied into an active vent. Active vent carries gas. Thank you.
We were able to partner with the Department of Veteran Affairs. These units are going to house displaced veterans. These small units, they're small, 6 units, but it's a start to address the housing crisis that we have.
I was supposed to be going to a high rise or something like that. I didn't want that. This was ideal for me. And then especially, we only have 6 units, really making it ideal for me. When you're in a congested place, you have more chance of disagreements and confusion. When you're in a place like this here, you know, I don't have to say nothing to him if he don't want to say nothing to me. You understand what I'm saying? But we treat each other with respect, and we go on about our business. And that's the thing about this here, all us veterans, and we know how to get along. And I like it. And so far, so good. And I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you too. I appreciate your service.
Yeah, appreciate you.
That's the least that I can do is pay it forward. House is right here. It's the actual route that I actually walked when I pulled up to the house. I would say the door is probably right here. And it was already partially open. I just pushed the door open. And my mom was just laying in the middle of the floor, face down. I just dropped my things and ran to her. Called 911. Like somebody just killed my mom, somebody just killed my mom. The lady was like, baby, don't say someone killed your mom. Like, does she have a pulse? Go check her pulse. So I dropped the phone, run back into the hallway. And when I went, stooped down, checked my mom's pulse, her neck open. I just ran out of the house. And until this day, still, it's an unsolved homicide. It's an unsolved homicide. During the time of losing my mom, I was pretty much lost. No help, no guidance, just like freelancing thoughts. And you know how that typically goes. We base our decision on pleasure and pain. Got more involved into crime, stemmed for anger, just rage that was untreated. I learned how to cope with it and manage it. I learned how to release the anger and the rage that I had trapped inside of me and become more free and become free. There's a lot of hidden jewels in our neighborhood that need to be revealed, that need to be chiseled away, that need to be helped. I'm one of the ones that received the help, and I did the right thing with it. From prison to promise. While in prison, I discovered the root of my problems, and I dealt with them. Thank you. I set my goals, I knew I wanted to be a developer. I knew I wanted to give back to my neighborhood. I knew I had the capabilities. I knew I had the strength. I set those goals with the help of those around me, and I went after them. I didn't stop.
There's been a lot of tragedy connected to this space. If you had to live there and you were hurting in a one-bedroom, I don't know if there was one individual that lived by themselves in a one-bedroom apartment. It was all families in those units. Then you couple that with the tragedy of a young lady losing her life on that spot.
She has 5 children ages 6, 9, 11, 14, and 18, now without a mother.
She was coming right outside that store, being shot in the face 3 times. I mean, ugly, gruesome stuff. She collapsed in the yard of those apartments. So for a long time, that space was connected to that tragedy. And this reality is continuing to cycle. Being in this community, the people are by far the most essential thing, the most essential memories. These memories that really continue to draw me and keep me here. But when I got a teenager, I kind of drifted from those values. And you imagine a kid, grew up in the church, best friends, literally choir boys in the church choir, just kind of falling victim. And my best friend was killed when I was 17 years old. And a few years later, another friend, went to jail and was killed in jail. So you imagine, these kids literally from choir boys, from playing football, Pierre, he was the quarterback, I was the wide receiver, running track. I was the first leg of the 440, literally handed the baton to him. And now, at such a young age, this kid is gone. Out of the 3 friends, my 2 friends died, were killed, and I'm left alive. And the burden of being alive, the burden of knowing that in some regards, it could have been, maybe should have been me instead of them. But I'm alive. So what do I do with that?
We come from the same digs. He was up on the corner, up there a couple of blocks over, doing the wrong thing. But then he realized that, hey, we destroying our own neighborhood. We're destroying our own people. The parents worked and slaved to get these houses. Left them for the kids, but I guess they was tired of being poor down here, They wanted out, so they just left. Without kids in a neighborhood, it's gonna die. The neighborhood it's gonna soon die.
A root word of imagination is what? Image. If you control the images, then you control the imagination. If you control my imagination, now you control my expectation. Because I can only expect what I can see. And then if you control my expectation, now my whole future is in your hands. All because you control the images. Images of what we see right outside our door. It's trying to counter the images. If we have images that are only blight and destruction and raggedy houses and buildings that are closed, like when I was a child, then those images are communicating value, not just to children, but to us as adults. So I'm riding down the street and I'm understanding how I am valued in my city based on what I see.
It was a steady stream of customers in and out of Kroger on Lamar Avenue Wednesday, but next month, this store is closing its doors.
A little sad. We've got a lot of memories here.
In its absence, what is the community going to do to be able to like fill that void?
I say almost walking distance from here, just outside of walking distance. But now it's going to be almost impossible if you don't own a car like I don't to go and get groceries.
It does feel like a food desert when you're standing over here in the middle of a parking lot that used to be filled with customers, and whether they be in vehicles or they walk from the neighboring community. I can refer back to a quote that was in an article I read that health was determined by your zip code and not by your genetic code.
When I was driving out here, I just noticed that there weren't any grocery stores, there weren't any fresh produce anywhere. That was a kind of a shocker to me. To see the lack of infrastructure or even the lack of interest in infrastructure in these parts of town was pretty shocking. There are too many people in this neighborhood and in this city who are starving on full stomachs. You know, the corner stores only go so far. You know, there might be some dense proteins like nuts that they could get there, but beyond that, you know, there's no leafy greens, there's no fruits, there's no root vegetables, no dairy products, no eggs, no nothing. They used to be full-service convenience stores where people could buy whatever they needed. And now there's huge avoidable healthcare crises that maybe couldn't be solved overnight, but they could definitely be solved in a generation by just exposing people to the fresh fruits and vegetables that, you know, people of means have access to.
Here and surrounded by 2 drug houses. There was a dog fighting ring. You know, there was a house with a tree on top that we have to encounter every day because this is where we live, where we work, where we find worship. It can be overwhelming. But Miss Ernestine Ward, you know, she declared, this is where our garden will be. And from that moment, we cleared the lot and we began a garden.
Mr. Foster, I think it would be an awesome idea if we could turn all of these crack houses into a farm. I've always told you about securing all of this land around Knowledge Quest. That way you can control your environment. And we can have organic, fresh vegetables for our children. Not only for the health benefits, but for knowledge. And we do tours. We come to the farm, we do tours, go down the road and explain, oh, this is a turnip. These are salad green. These are tomatoes. And they are so sweet and fresh. And we've gone to the pack house in Theo, let them wash the carrots, and we eat them right on site.
Here, how's that one look?
Watch your step, come on. Watch your step.
Knowledge Quest survives off of being relevant in the life of children. It's that same principle of allowing them to tap into something where they find passion that's bigger than themselves. We're partnering and we're servants to the school. We're partnering and we are, you know, supports and servants to the parents. It's just a part of an educational system. Your mindset needs to be, I want to draw everything from them I can. Because you're going to come here every morning, you already know what you know. You don't grow if you walk away only knowing what you know. This is about strategic thought. This is about high school students becoming some of the smartest people in the room because they know how to solve problems. And if you know how to solve problems, you will always eat. You will always make money.
Every single group will pick one property. This is the property that you guys are going to stick with, and this is a property that you guys are going to create your opportunity spaces.
Me and my group picked a church, and we thought that it would be like a good place to put like multi stuff in it, and that's exactly what we did. We picked a homeless shelter, a grocery store, a daycare, and a thrift shop.
Yeah, here got an old foot homes, y'all. This is the old foot homes report. All it did was foot homes. This is not even a picture for foot homes.
How do you all feel about them redoing foot homes?
I used to live in foot homes, and then I went to BTW. Well, first I went to Vance in Georgia. Georgia was, they took it down because there wasn't a lot of kids coming. They took Vance down because there wasn't a lot of kids coming. And then they all stuck us into one big old building in BTW. Like, it's way crowded there. They took away my friends, my teachers, my learning environment where I used to live.
As our generation, we had to watch our friends like being separate from each other. Like, everybody's scattered. Like, it wasn't just people just moved to South Memphis. Like, some went to Whitehaven, some went to East Memphis. Like, everybody just scattered.
Do you feel as if what they're doing with foot homes now, it's a good sacrifice that you all are going through?
Yes, because, like I said, good memories and bad memories. And I think one of the bad memories was, like, my friends started to like die, all because wrong place at the wrong time. And I think that people, when they think of 38126 and think of the people here in the community, they think of, oh, it's like all bad. No, they're not gonna be nothing. Even if it's like in our schools, like they would say stuff like that. And I feel like it's just nice to prove people wrong. I've grown accustomed to seeing like the vacant lots and like the blighted neighborhoods and abandoned houses, and I'm used to seeing everything being run down. And so me as a teenager, I feel like that we should be the ones being listened to so we can change it.
That was like a very bad. The banks lost all everyone's money.
Man, the one we've been waiting for is up. This is one of the houses that we don't own that goes all the way back to the original master plan, going back to 2012, 2013. This house is just sat there with their reverse mortgage. We couldn't touch it. It had to go through the time of tax sale, land bank, to even get to this stage, and it's finally here. Wasn't much aware of the land bank early on, and just these searches kind of led us there, and it's just this constant search of just trying to keep an eye on properties, and we have this vested interest because we're taking care of all of them anyway. I mean, one of the challenges when we do this work that I've noticed for many that come into this space is the challenge of encountering a family that's at a place that may not be at the highest level of economic stability, may not be the nicest house on the block, but they experience a sense of contentment and satisfaction. And to be content in life is like the highest thing that we all want. And to be in community, especially in urban pockets, and to come across a family that's content, that's happy, they're where they want to be, in the neighborhood they want to be in, and their life for them is successful. If we measure that against
our own personal standards or a broader cultural standard of, you know, the manicured yard, the 3-story house, the 3-car garage with 3 cars in it. Whatever that image is for you, if we make that personal, and I put my personal standard on another individual, that's when we get off into judgment. And when we get off into judgment, it's just a downward slope from there. So stability is understood back down to that family unit. Success is understood back down to that family unit. You ask my wife, do you want to go anywhere else and live? She does not want to go anywhere else and live outside of this house in South Memphis.
Y'all remember what this used to look like with this land across the street. And everybody said it was blighted. Everybody said it needed to be mitigated. Everybody said it's bringing the property value down. But we said, no, those are green assets. And we just began to care for what was around us. And now you got all these companies and all these corporations and all this investment on the same land that folks said wasn't nothing. We need to see our lives like that. Every time there's something negative on the news, that's South Memphis. Every time there's a school that's not performing, that's in South Memphis. Every time there's something that happens in the economic realm of unemployment, that's South Memphis. But we got to refuse to allow folks to put labels over our lives. And that starts with understanding who we are of our own selves, because when we operate in who we are in God, the world is going to have to respond to who we are. The world will have to respond to how we label ourselves. That we are blessed and highly favored. That we are the head and not the tail. That we are healed and not sick. That we're on the top and not the bottom.
Now this courtyard no longer represented the place where Feesey died. It no longer represented the place where we had a shootout with children right here on the farm. It no longer represented a place where, man, families of 10 got to live in less than 500 square feet. It represented a place of beauty, a place of art. There was an effort of our hands as a community. So what are we doing, buying a set of apartments? We are a youth development organization, but they were so communal, the context was so tight in the backyard of our farm, there was an explicit straight line connection to the reality that we experienced because there was no separation between structures and community and aesthetics and working with children.
Let he without sin cast the first stone. A better economical development as a people within a nation as a whole.